Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine Middlegames series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're taking a look at the end of the game between Stockfish and Komodo Dragon, TCEC Season 22 Superfinal Game 46. Now, we'd already looked at the very exciting opening phase of this game in an earlier video. But this was the phase basically after Stockfish chose a pretty solid continuation in the opening and just went for the slightly better side of a static structure. Well, we're 118 moves in, and not that much really has happened. Black's king is a little bit odd, but basically Black's doing fine. The problem is that White doesn't have many pawn breaks. I mean, there's e6, which you've got to watch out for. After fe6, rook e1, we've got to have a rook on e8 to help defend the pawn on e6. But apart from that, Black just has to spend a modicum of care, and Black's going to be all right. There might be some unusual ideas with sacrificing a rook on c6 and then a queen taking a pawn on b5 or d5, but it seems that Black can defend against those pretty well. However, we were in the blitz zone. The engines didn't have much time. Of course, you know, even with 5 or 10 seconds, they're still calculating hundreds of millions of moves every move. So, you know, it's not you know, completely crippling for them. But still, you know, if the position's complicated enough, it can, you know, lead to problems. I mean, you would, you know, really want a lot more time. And indeed, you know, when I run my my engines at long time controls from these positions, I just get lots of draws. You know, I mean, it's you know, with Black, the engines you know, managed to avoid all the pitfalls. But, you know, with little time, Komodo actually fell into a few. And, well, I mean, we've seen this scenario in previous Sufis with the blitz zone that, you know, Stockfish, I think, converted a lot of wins it had no right to, you know, against Leela. But I hadn't really expected the same to happen against Komodo. But, yeah, well, you know, the evidence of this game is that it certainly can happen. So what Komodo did was a slightly incautious queen g4. Rook e1, king e6, and now h5. And this is a very nice move from Stockfish. It opens up the h file. But what that also means is that it makes it possible to really catch the black queen. With a pawn on h4, the queen was perfectly safe on h5. Now with the open h file, it's open to attack from a rook on h1. Now, Stockfish played a few moves, just getting its rooks into play, just teeing up for the hunt on the black queen. And what I really liked about the way that Stockfish played this in one of my engine matches was that it just brought the queen back straight away, back to its position. Queen h8, and just basically reorganized itself. And, you know, sort of 10 moves later, it had got this sort of stuff, which looks very solid. You know, the queen defends f7, stops e5 to e6, rook's defending c6, king out of the way and safe. You know, White can try and invade along the h-file, but it's a pretty narrow entry channel, and, you know, there's a limit to how much you're going to achieve. So that was pretty safe. I mean, in the game, Komodo did absolutely fine. You know, it's not wrong to keep the queen around here, but it is risky. But for quite a while, Komodo did a great job. I mean, what you see, the way that Komodo's doing this, it keeps on hitting the white queen at a strategic moment, and then the queen has to move away, and then Komodo's queen gains extra space. For example, here we've got queen c4, we've still got g4, we've got f2, we've even got g2. So, no, not easy at all to catch that black queen. But, you know, as time proceeded, you know, Stockfish got more and more creative in the ways that it was trying. So queen g3, queen e4, queen c3, queen e2, some typical Stockfish repetitions there. King b2, just avoiding queen c4. Queen f2. Even here, you know, the engines were still drawing lots of games. I've got two Stockfish Komodo Dragon games here where Komodo held the draw both times, you know, in at long time controls. So we're still well within the draw zone. But, you know, Stockfish just starts edging its queen a little bit closer to the black queen. And we're getting stuff like rook f1 as well, you know, and gradually the squares are getting squeezed. Rook c8, rook hh1. We've now got all sorts of ideas of hitting the queen on the from the back rank. The queen still can't get back, of course. Queen g2, queen e3, rook aa8, Not a bad idea, this one. As you'll see, there's a definite point to it. Rook h3, and this is actually the really crucial moment. And of course, you know, just watching it with human eyes, very hard to spot that this is the crucial moment. But after this, basically after Komodo's next move, it actually looks as if Stockfish is winning. Though, yeah, you kind of need to be pretty good in order to see why and to execute it perfectly. The key move here was not rook a6 as Komodo played, but was queen e4. And we saw this idea earlier. You know, just when the net is about to close, you start hitting the white queen, and you yeah, and you create some room for yourself. Actually, here there's a very important point, because it looks here that you know, queen c3 was what we did before, and then queen e2 happened. But it looks here that you can go queen to f2, because this the position of the rook on h3 is excellent. It stops the queen getting to d3, and we're just threatening rook to e1. So and the queen is trapped. Very typical way of boxing up the queen there, but actually we've got something very nice here. We can just play the move rook to h8, and there's a couple of problems to that. Rook takes c6 check, which is normally the problem. We go king d7, and we've got threats of queen b1 check and rook h3. I mean, actually white's in huge amounts of trouble here. And if we go rook e3, the big problem is that the pawn on d4 isn't protected, so we can play queen d4, and there's no good discovery there. So yeah, you know, I mean, this is black's surviving just there, but you know, not very easy at all. But rook a6 was played by Komodo. I mean, essentially just you know, waiting and assuming that that everything's fine. But yeah, now things really got difficult. Now, Stockfish played the move bishop c3, and we'll explain why that's useful. Well, I think probably you already start to guess a little bit from what we saw before. The bishop is defending d4, so that does mean that you know, queen e4 takes d4 will not be possible for black. The thing that interested me, though, was why not play the move, pardon me, rook g1, queen e4, queen f2 here, because I'm just threatening rook to e1. And, well, rook h8 isn't possible because the black rook's on a6 rather than a8. But here, in actual fact, black has the great move c5. White plays b takes c5. Looks like everything's still in control. We're still threatening rook e1. Note, of course, that we couldn't play rook e1 immediately because queen takes d4. Again, the fact that the d4 pawn is loosely defended only by the white queen gives black some escape possibilities. But b takes c5 looks fine. The bishop's covering a5. Why not play rook e1 after? However, now we start seeing that the white king is not quite as great as it seems. Now, the move that I expected here was rook takes c5, with a devilishly clever idea. D takes c5. Of course, rook e1, I've got queen c2 check. That's very important. D takes c5, queen c4, king b2, bishop takes c5. And yeah, I mean, I'm threatening well, the queen and the rook, of course. And I've got ideas like bishop d4 check, for example, which, you know, can be quite awkward. And of course, if you go queen f1, I could even play a move like queen d4 check, forking these two. Bizarrely enough, this move queen d4 check is not the best. Queen a4, in actual fact, is black's best, threatening stuff like bishop d4, and then later rook a5 with enough to draw, apparently. But queen d4 actually fails to bishop c3, queen takes g1, queen b5. When queen g2 check, king b3, queen h3 allows mate in 2. Can you spot it? It's queen e8 check, bishop e7, queen c8, which is quite unusual. I was quite happy to spot that one. Actually, queen f1 is not the best move. There's another move which I also spotted, even without engine help, and that's queen h4. And we're just coming round to f6. And the big problem is that bishop takes g1 allows queen f6, queen g6, and we just check all the way to mate there. So it's not rook takes c5. Actually, it's the move bishop takes c5. Again, we can't attack the queen with rook e1 because we've got queen d4. And after d takes c5, it's important now. I'd only really considered queen c4 check, king b2, rook c5. And now rook c1 hits the queen and the rook on c5 behind it. And there's no checks, you know, and there's nothing at all. You know, this bishop and this rook doing a beautiful defensive job. But black actually plays the move b4, cutting off the bishop's attack to defense of the pawn on a5. That means we're threatening queen c4 and rook a5. And then, yeah, invasion on a2. And it's just really difficult for white to find good answers to this. For example, if we go bishop takes b4, this was Stockfish's main line. We go rook b8, pinning, queen e1, and then just the quiet move queen d4, which is very nice. We're threatening, we've got some ideas of going rook b4 and queen takes g1. And we've also just got the idea of rook a5, or even just queen takes c5, lining up on this bishop. And yeah, I mean, actually the main line was rook g3, rook a5, queen c3, queen f4, and then Stockfish even wanted to sack a rook and then block the b file with rook b6. So yeah, pretty sharp stuff. But Stockfish and Komodo were fighting this out to a draw in the end. So yeah, I mean, what you see basically from this line is that yeah, white doesn't really have enough control over the center here. So Stockfish plays the move bishop c3, and that's defending d4. And now, yeah, some of these threats really are going to be very dangerous. So rook a8 played, rook g3, a little repetition there, and then a very fine move here, bishop b2. And the idea is, of course, is that we're attacking the pawn on c6. So we're stopping this rook moving away from c8. The other thing is that in some lines black has a queen e4 and then queen b1 check escape. Well, having the bishop on b2 just means that this escape is not available. Now, always with these moves, you've got to watch out. I mean, bishop b4 actually is a bit annoying. Bishop b4, there's queen b2 check, but we simply got rook c2, you know, covering the bishop on b2, and then afterwards king b4 will be possible. But yeah, I mean, you always have to be, you know, alert to these sort of tactical possibilities, because even when you think you've got great control, you know, it can still be a problem. Well, Komodo just didn't find any sort of active play at all here, and it played rook b8. And now this is really, really nice from Stockfish, because it started to coral the black queen, and it takes forever. But amazingly enough, there's nothing that black can do to really interfere with that process. I mean, the big problem as well for black is that obviously I've been looking mainly at the c5 break. With the bishop on b2, you might think about the g5 break a bit more, and it might be something that black has to do in the end. The only problem is that this really weakens the sixth rank enormously. I mean, c5 doesn't really weaken the safety of the black king so much, but g5, of course, you know, allows rook to h6, and when the king moves, e6. So you know, it's really really dangerous, this idea. So yeah, I mean, Komodo just started waiting. Rook ch1, rook a8, and now this lovely move queen a1. And you know, we're just going to start again getting a hold of this queen. Rook h2 is one idea, and after queen e4 we're going to go queen d2 and then try and play rook e2 and trap the queen. It's extremely complicated, and you know, along the way you've got to be always watching out for breaks like c5, as we saw before. So I mean, I was wondering just a little bit here, why not c5 immediately? That looked pretty good to me. I mean, if you go d takes c5, I go d4. And the point is I'm threatening queen d5 check. So if you go bishop d4, I go queen d5 check, and I win a piece, because king c3, there's queen c4. I had wondered whether white could consider playing a move like king a2. You know, what's the idea of that? The idea basically is, look, I'm going to put my king to safety away. I've got, you know, this very nice phalanx on the queen side. I've got this bad feeling that Mr. Beads, the famous TCEC chatter, Mr. Beads is going to say this is a semi-Slav structure. But I thought, you'll just get the king back, and then this d pawn is cut off, can't be supported by the bishop, we're just going to win another pawn. But Stockfish showed me this incredible idea here, and rook takes a5, and after queen a5, rook a8. And well, after here, black's got so many ways of giving checks and perpetuals that yeah, this is not very much for white. And this move bishop a3 is simply met by b4. Still got a sort of dangerous past c pawn for white, but again, my engine games were ending in draws from here. So I mean, the other idea I was looking at was to play something like rook 1 h2, queen e4, queen d2. I mean, it felt very risky, but the idea is that if you go something like, for example, c takes b4, I can go rook e2, queen b1, and then rook e1, for example. And if you go rook c3, I just take it, takes, and your queen is still trapped. Haha! However, it wasn't too much of a surprise that there is something to be done about it, although I do have to admit that it wasn't quite what I expected. I mean, I was looking at this move g5, just trying to open some space, and then afterwards we'll get at the white king. Sort of, I know that this weakens the king, and it does, but I sort of thought that well, the white king's also in some danger, so maybe it's the same on both sides. But actually, Stockfish found an amazing idea here. I mean, I was trying to make ideas work, but I just couldn't find a combination. So c3 in this position, bishop c3 and rook c4. And the amazing point here is that after rook e2, actually trapping the queen, we've got rook takes a5 check. B takes a5, we've got rook a4 check, king b2, bishop a3 check, king b3, queen b1 check, bishop b2, and now the absolutely stunning bishop f8. Can you see the mate? It's rook a3 checkmate. That's the one that's coming in. Astonishing. Absolutely amazing. And after rook takes e5, if you go king b2, which again looks quite reasonable, I mean, the queen's still trapped after all. We've got this idea rook b4 check, takes. And obviously queen b4 allows queen e2 check. And rook takes e4 allows bishop d2, and then the bishop will take on f4, and you'll be fine with black. Number of pawns for the exchange, and well, they're on dark squares, so you'll easily be able to attack them with your dark squared bishop. So, I mean, actually, after c5, b takes c5 is the idea. What worried me actually when I was analysing was I thought b4 might be a little bit annoying here. You're just interrupting the protection of the queen of the pawn in a5, and well, I mean, if white needs a couple of moves to trap the queen, well, we might get some rook a5 or rook c5. You never know. But there's a very strong way of trapping this queen, and that is rook h2, queen e4. And now, for some reason, I was always looking at queen d2. That was sort of what I was expecting was the way to defend the pawn on f4 and also play rook e2. But this is not so clear, because rook a5, rook e2, queen b1, rook e1, there's rook a3 check. And after king b4, we go queen a2. And yeah, there's all sorts of things attacked and all that. The problem is I'm going queen c4 check and chasing your king up the board, which, well, is never really good news, it has to be said. Also, rook b8 check is extremely strong as well. So after queen e4, though, the best move is to go queen f1. And I'm not sure why I didn't see that. It's much more elegant. We're covering the b1 square, and we're just threatening e2. And again, I thought that maybe something with g5 was possible. Just give yourself an escape square on f4, and at the same time, you're threatening all sorts of different sacks maybe. But this move queen b5 is extremely unpleasant. So it stops the king coming back to d7, and we've got this move rook h6 check. And yeah, black's just completely lost in this position. Black somehow has just ended up wrecking its own position. So c5 is not working. So yeah, I mean, it's getting a little bit tricky for black here. I mean, black played queen e4 and white played queen d2, and we're just threatening rook e1 here, trapping the queen. So black hit the panic button with g5, f takes g5, rook g8. So it's still, pretty unclear, of course. Or it looks very murky. I'll say it like that because Stockfish's, evaluation was in the stratosphere here. But the big problem for black is that, obviously you have to get the queen free. But the last thing you wanted to do was to open up this 6th rank. And there are various ways of playing it. I mean, my engines, Stockfish and Dragon as white, they were playing quite different stuff. Might well be that Stockfish was short of time and just maybe chose a less good win, or maybe they're just equivalent. Queen c3, rook c8, rook h6 check, king d7, rook e1, queen g4, e6 check was what my engines were playing, and that looks pretty powerful, really, I have to say. Takes. There was a lovely little moment there. Rook g7, bishop c1, f4, a6, queen g5, a7, queen g3, bishop f4. So if you take on f4, we're just going a8 queen here, and then afterwards taking on c6. So takes, rook a8, and then this lovely move, bishop b8, and with the rook completely imprisoned by the bishop on b8, pawn on a7, black ran out of chances pretty quickly. In the game, Stockfish went rook e1, queen g4, queen c3, rook ac8, bishop c1, and this was actually quite nice, this conversion approach, because what white's simply doing is white's just going to take the pawn on f4, and then you just got this horrifically dangerous f file, and then you really notice that the king doesn't have a safe spot, is way away from where it would want to be, and that anything happening is just going to be really terrible. So after queen g2, bishop f4, bishop h4, queen e3, bishop e7 here, queen g4, bishop h6, the f7 pawn was going, and this ending is hardly obvious to win. After all, the black bishop's on the same square as all of the white pawns, but this king is awkward. We've got this passed a pawn, which makes it hard for black to exchange rooks, and we've got some nice channels, the g file, the 7th rank, in order to invade, and Stockfish won this without too much difficulty. Although I think would have not necessarily an easy conversion for white. You can have a look at the game. I'll put the link into the comments after the video. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was a fascinating bit of play there. Really a good example of how Stockfish scores quite a few points in these tournaments that you wouldn't expect it to get, and how I think the amazing thing about Stockfish is the resources that it finds in these completely blocked positions. I mean, we were talking in the chat about I think it was game 68 of the previous Sufi, which was an unlosable game for Leela that Stockfish converted with some amazing sacrifices once Leela incautiously opened a few lines. And this is very, very similar. A move like queen g4 allows white to play h5, and even then it's not finished, but just the that extra increase in activity, the extra trappiness in the play, is enough to for Stockfish to work its magic. And I do have to say, this whole very deliberate caging of the black queen, is really quite amazing, and so amazing that there are plenty of tactics, c5 breaks all over the place, but none of them seem to work, and when you're playing rook e1 here, really nice. And again, I always like this idea that when the opponent is compelled to wreck its own position in order to deal with your threats, and that's pretty much what happened there. So there we are. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you like this video, why not give a like or subscribe to the channel. Even take a look at my new book, The Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, which shows lots of great engine games and lots of tips for working with engines. And otherwise, thanks very much for watching this video, and hope to see you at the next one.